Hello, everybody. This is Amir, and in this presentation, I'm going to say how teachers should provide peer review guidelines for the students in a writing class. What I will discuss in these presentations, as you see here, are why peer review. So, firstly, we should make it clear how it is important, and then why training the students to learn peer review. And then we're going to answer the questions, do the students like receive feedback from teachers or peers? Um After that, you would like to see the general rules in priming the students for peer feedback, and at the end, techniques for peer review. Teachers need to believe in what they are doing in the classroom. So if teachers do not have the belief that the peer feedback in writing class can work, they would not put their heart and soul into it, in advertising that, in helping the students to develop such kind of a skill. So I would like to let the teachers know about the important theoretical background for this kind of activity. The main theoretical support for peer feedback in writing is from Vygotsky socio-cultural theory, emphasizing that higher forms of learning and cognitive development are social in nature. So I would like to tell the teachers to take advantage of the social interaction opportunities in the classroom to provide the ground for the students and uh, learn from each other. The students definitely can learn from each other in such social setting. Uh, there are many benefits in peer review feedback, but three of them seem the most important to me, and I would like to tell the teachers know about it. Um, the first one is raising awareness. The learner's awareness of their errors is raised, especially if a peer is notifying him of uh, the errors that they have. And this perception of feedback from a peer can increase, especially if it is advertised and supervised by the teacher in the class. The second thing is developing learning autonomy. Peers cannot give feedback or use the feedback they have received from their friends, from their peers, unless they have developed a higher order of critical thinking, especially for negotiating the meaning. So they can become autonomous actually whenever they have raised that awareness and they know how to use those feedbacks from their friends. Later on, even they can have self-evaluation of their own writing if they reach that awareness. Then the peers can learn to ask questions, for example, for clarification and providing appropriate response. So they learn social skills. And this kind of social skill is really effective if they learn to conduct that in a very cooperative way. Next questions that teachers should know the answer to it is, do the students like receive feedback from teachers or peers? Well, so the answer to this question is something that should be cleared for both the teachers, the students, and even for the parents sometimes. It is a stereotype to say teachers' feedback is better. Uh, Literature has proven that in, for example, EFL context, learners use both the peers and teachers' feedback. To be honest, uh, the teacher's feedback by a slight margin is uh, more than the feedback that the students provide, and the students are more perceptive to teachers' feedback. But it is due to the stereotype again, and naturally it takes time that research findings of effectiveness of peer review get established in pedagogy. But there are many studies showing the effectiveness of peer feedback. And then another interesting thing about peer feedback in writing is that um, the students, or let's say the learners, prefer to give feedback in macro level. However, the teachers have got more feedback in micro level. So when it comes to, for example, giving feedback for example, a 4-paragraph essay, of course, the peer review feedback can work much better compared to the ones of the teacher. So we can say, in conclusion, a student's feedback or peer feedback in writing can be potentially really good and it can improve the writing of the students. There are a couple of general rules in priming the students for peer feedback, and the teachers should be familiar with them. The first one is ethical issues. Teachers need to explain to their students that everybody is prone to mistakes or imperfections, so they should not be shy or feel humiliated if their peers are giving them feedback. As long as they make effort to revise their writing based on their peer feedback, they are on the right track. Also, both the givers and receivers should know that they are cooperating with each other. So respect and politeness is rule number one. Another thing is sense of commitment. Um, Teachers should let the students know that they are responsible for the feedbacks they give and for their using of those feedbacks. They can either gain or lose scores. That way, they are held accountable for their behavior in giving feedback and also in receiving the feedback. And another thing is teachers' assistance. I believe that teachers can have a one-to-one conference with the feedback givers and also feedback receivers for a couple of sessions to make sure that they are on the right track. Feedback receivers should learn how to use the feedback. So both giving and using the feedbacks are important, and teachers should always assist them. Uh, and I would like to continue with modeling techniques of giving feedback. The teachers need to consider the setting before asking the students to do peer feedback. They should consider the age, the task that they are doing, or the resources that they have got. For example, we cannot expect the students to give synchronous feedback like the ones on Google Doc if they don't have a computer or they do not have access to internet service. It would be really difficult for them. Then there are some characteristics in uh, that teachers should consider when they want to model techniques of giving feedback, like clarifying writer's intention, identifying problems, explaining the nature of the problem, and then making a specific suggestion. Let's imagine that our learners are teaching English as a second language major students, and they have got a writing class and they've been writing a 4-paragraph essay. Right now, we want them to give peer review feedback to their friends. Uh, I think that the teachers should firstly provide a guideline sheet for the feedback givers, and they should understand exactly what areas of that writing should be addressed. For example, for a 4-paragraph essay, possibly they can look at some bigger pictures of the writing rather than mechanics of the writing, like the organizations of the paragraphs, like they can check out whether or not the main idea is expressed in the introduction. The supporting paragraphs, they can browse the supporting paragraphs in terms of the main idea and supporting evidence, examples, and clarity. So it is the guideline sheet that would make sure that the students, I mean the peer review feedback, the feedback givers are always on the safe side. If there is any idea or any example that is not understandable, or they cannot connect it to the previous paragraph, or they cannot connect it to the, or let's say relate it to the main idea of that paragraph, they can have a conference with a one-to-one meeting or conference with the writer of that essay, Then they can clarify what the writer intended to say. Uh, Again, in such conference, there are a couple of things that teachers need to clarify for the feedback givers. For example, they can use hedging. Uh, for example, they can ask the students, I was wondering if you meant this, instead of saying it is hard to understand that you say this. Because I told you respect and politeness is rule number one that teachers should always consider when they want to prime the students for peer feedback. And then on the side of the receivers of the feedback who are supposed to use those feedbacks, uh, they should see if the feedback that is written over there is clear or unclear. If they're clear, uh, well, they can apply the correct form or they can revise their writing. If they are not clear, they can again have a meeting with the feedback giver and ask for further clarification. Another thing that the teachers should emphasize is that in this process of giving feedback, the students should learn to give positive feedback also, not just negative ones, because they should try to make a balance between these two. They should talk about the things that are good in their friends' writing also. It can encourage them and also it can create a better cooperative atmosphere in giving and receiving feedback.